Hello and welcome back to Rugby from the Stands. So, I have a bit of a confession to make. As someone who runs a rugby channel, I haven't really followed the URC or the Premiership. As a Chiefs fan, my world has pretty much been Super Rugby. I've always had this perception, maybe unfairly, that Northern Hemisphere club rugby is just, well, slow and a little bit boring. I think of all the stoppages, the scrum resets, the referee interventions. It's not the super fast, super skilled game that I'm used to from Super Rugby. But I want to be open to this. I want to learn about these tournaments and to get to know the up and coming players from the Northern Hemisphere and South Africa. So this weekend, I did it. I stayed up late, which is the main challenge, honestly. And I watched three massive games. In the URC, I watched the Sharks versus Ulster game. And then the big one, Leinster versus Munster straight after. And in the Premiership, I watched Leicester versus Bath. So here are my honest, unscripted thoughts. Let's start with the frustrating one, Sharks versus Ulster. I was looking at the Sharks team sheet and it was full of Springboks. You see these players put their bodies on the line for the international jersey, and then you expect the same intensity, but it was just frustrating to watch. It felt, and I'm sorry for the Sharks fans, right? But I felt like the players were just half-assing it a bit. And the stats actually 100% back this up. Ulster controlled the game. They were leading for 77 minutes of the match. But the real story was the efficiency. Okay, the Sharks got into Ulster's 22-meter zone 9 times, but they only averaged 2.8 points from those visits. And Ulster, they only got in 5 times, but they averaged 5.6 points per visit. That is absolutely clinical. You just can't win when you're that inefficient. And on top of that, they gave away 17 penalties and 2 cards. And one was a red. And honestly, some of the chats that some of the Sharks players were having with the referee was also kind of annoying as well. I wasn't expecting that from a South African club team. Because again, all I have is the Springboks to go with, and I've never seen a South African club team play before, and obviously I've seen them play in the Super Rugby tournament, but I've never seen them talk back or yell at the at the referee. So this was a bit weird. Never seen them play that way, and I felt like they just pretty much gifted the game to Ulster. In this game, my player of the match for me was the Ulster's number 8, Nick Timoney. He was everywhere, and he topped the tackle count with 18 tackles. And yeah, he was a true workhorse, but wasn't a pretty game to watch, to be honest. But kudos to Ulster. They came down to Sharks' home ground and won in hostile territory. So yeah, that was positive. And again, a lot of the South African fans obviously complain about lack of uh, spectators at the venues, and the Sharks Ulster game had plenty of empty seats, which again to me was like, come on, what's going on? Right now, let's talk about the game that I was really looking forward to, Leinster versus Munster, and there was no problem with spectators here. Right, it was a packed house. You can see the atmosphere was insane. And to be honest, my interest in this game was quite personal. I'm obviously a massive Chiefs fan, and our coach Clayton McMillan, he's up there with the Munster team right now. And it's also been really great to see how warmly Munster fans have welcomed him. And I've always had a chip on my shoulder all my life. I've always felt like the underdog. So I really relate to that Munster kind of identity, especially going up against a Leinster team that's bloody stacked, right? But here's the thing that absolutely blew my mind when I looked at the match data. Leinster dominated this game on paper. They had 61% of the possession and 59% of the territory. They made 232 passes to Munster's 92. They carried the ball and 76 times to Munster's 82. So how did Munster win this game? 1-14. 2 words: brutal defense. Munster made 239 tackles. Let me say that again: 239 tackles. The tackle completion rate was 93%. That's insane. World class. And look at the efficiency stats again. Leicester's dominance meant nothing. They averaged just 1.27 points per 22 entry. Leicester, on the other hand, was lethal. They were averaging 3.5 points every time they got into the 22. And they weren't just kicking. Munster kicked more. Yes, 28 kicks to 13. But they also had more line breaks. 7 line breaks to Leinster's 4. This was a tactical masterclass. They absorbed pressure, won 10 turnovers, and struck when it mattered. My players to watch from this game, firstly, is Tag Byrne. Man, I know Jack Crowley got man of the match, but for me, he was my man of the match. The man is a breakdown cheat code. He won 4 turnovers by himself, and the whole Munster back row, like Gavin Coombs, Jack O'Donoghue, and Fineen Wycherley, all made 20 tackles each. That is basically a wall. Now, this game was also the perfect stage for the big debate in Irish rugby right now. Who is the future number 10? Jack Crowley for Munster or Sam Prendergast for Leinster? Now, I'm obviously new to this, but I'm just going to say, I think I'm on Team Crowley. It's not that Prendergast isn't good. He's clearly a huge talent, but I feel like he's been thrown into the deep end way too early. He's still young. He needs more game time in these tight situations to earn his stripes. Jack Crowley, on the other hand, is playing fantastic rugby right now. He's clearly made a statement in this game, and I think Ireland needs to build the team around him heading to the 2027 Rugby World Cup. Prendergast has plenty of time. He can be the guy for the 2031 World Cup, but right now I think it's Jack Crowley's time. And obviously, Prendergast can come off the bench, and he can lead whenever Jack Crowley is injured. But at the moment, I think Andy Farrell should probably give Jack Crowley the keys to the car. Finally, I watched my first ever Premiership game, Leicester Tigers versus Bath, and this was just a top quality, tight, tense match. The final score was 22-20, and here's a stat that tells the story. Bath led this game for 47 minutes. Leicester only led for 31 minutes. So what happened? Well, Bath's defense was immense. They had to make 151 tackles, and their attack was fast. The stats show that Bath's average ruck speed was in the 0 to 3 second window 63% of the time versus just 41% for Leicester. So they were playing with some crazy tempo. But just like the Sharks game, the difference was discipline. Conceded 11 penalties to Leicester's 5. And the efficiency? The margins were tiny. Leicester scored 2.44 points per 22 entry, while Bath scored 2.13. In a tight game like this, that's the difference. And it all came down to that final moment, a yellow card to Bath's Thomas Dutoit in the 80th minute, which set up Billy Seals. Am I pronouncing that name right? I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. It basically set up Billy's game-winning penalty in the 81st minute. Brutal. My players to watch from this game, for Leicester, I thought Ollie Cracknell was a carrying machine with 20 carries. And for Bath, Tom Dunn, he was the heart of their defense with 18 tackles. So what are my final impressions after my first proper weekend of Northern Hemisphere rugby? Well, the stereotype about the stoppages, I think, is kind of true. Across the 3 games, we had 19 scrums in the Sharks versus Ulster match, 15 in the Leinster-Munster match, and 13 in the Leicester-Bath match. As a Super Rugby fan, that does feel like it slows the game down, but I was wrong to just call it boring. I'm seeing a lot more expansive, attacking rugby than I expected. And I must say, the skill level of the players, especially under the high ball, is just on another level. They are so good at that. And it's something that I think, New Zealand Super Rugby teams specifically are traditionally not great at. So this weekend showed me that URC and Premiership rugby is this intense tactical chess match where discipline and red zone efficiency are everything. I will, however, take umbrage. I've always wanted to use that word, umbrage. And the idea that Super Rugby is just all attack and no defense, that's just not true. It's not a case of one being better, it's just different. And I'm really looking forward to covering more of it. My main challenge at this point in time is the timing. As you can see, it's nighttime for me right now, and these games are on so late for me. I had to record some of them because I fell asleep halfway through one of them. But look, I'm hooked. I want to engage. I want to learn more. I want to watch more. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. What did you make of the games, and who should I be supporting in the Premiership? I'm obviously leaning towards Leicester Tigers because I do watch Ben Young's and Dan Cole's For the Love of Rugby podcast. So I kind of have built some form of a affinity towards those two, and Leicester Tigers are their club. Also, Michael Checker is someone that I also respect quite highly, and he was, their former coach. But I'm open to suggestions. I really did like Henry Pollock's club. I can't remember what name they were. Was it the Northampton Saints? Were they Northampton? Not sure. But if they were, I kind of like them as well. Even seeing some of the players being named for the Lions squad, I thought that the Henry Pollock's club seemed to be genuinely caring for each other, and I thought that they genuinely were happy for each other when they were named in the Lions squad. So I kind of like that vibe. The vibes are pretty good. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.